The real estate business can be brutal. 80% of all agents fail, new agents, to renew their license the first year they're in business. It can also bring you riches beyond your wildest dreams. My name is Cliff Freeman, and I'm your host for today's episode of Cliff's Notes. I created this podcast to share the strategies and tactics to explode your real estate business. Whether you're a newbie or run a multi-state expansion team, you'll want to catch every episode of Cliff Notes to get the inside track to success. With over 30 years in the real estate and mortgage businesses, I've personally coached over 1,000 top real estate professionals across North America. My main areas of focus are self-leadership, business and strategic planning, people intelligence, lead generation and conversion, marketing, operations, and finance. Known as a trainer of trainers, I've served at the highest levels with the National Association of Realtors, the Texas Association of Realtors, the National Association of Mortgage Brokers, and I'm headed down to Houston this weekend to celebrate my 30th reunion with my MBA class from Rice University. Hey, this is Cliff. I am super stoked and super excited to be here today. Trellis, are you back there piloting this thing for us today?
I am. How's it going, Cliff?
Oh, man, I tell you, my goodness, I couldn't be more happy to have a very special guest than we have here today. And her name is Johanna McDaniel. And Johanna has she's relatively new into the business. She's been in real estate a little bit over 6 months now, but in the last month or so, you made some big changes in your business, and I want to tell you what, guests, audience, stick around. We're going to have a wonderful interview with her. The next 20 minutes are going to be worth thousands of dollars to your business. Oh, and don't forget, we've got a very special exercise we're going to do. I'm going to lay something really nice on you. It's an exercise that I do with my coaching clients to help you double your production, your productivity, with just a few short tricks and tips here. You're going to want to download that deliverable. We call it a deliverable because I've got it for you. And if you just go to www.getcliffsnotes.com, www.getcliffsnotes.com, you'll be able to download this exercise that we're going to do at the end of the show. And you'll also be able to subscribe so that we can let you know when we have events coming up and when our podcasts are going to be available. So I want you to do that just as soon as you can. Head over there, www.getcliffsnotes.com. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with Johanna McDaniels.
We're good.
All right. My goodness. So we just celebrated Mother's Day weekend this last weekend, and I know, Travis, did you have a good Mother's Day this last weekend?
I did. Well, my mother did. I guess I should say more. So she definitely did.
Well, you better put Mom first on Mother's Day. I'll tell you, that's right, isn't it?
Definitely. How about yourself?
Yeah. Well, it was terrific. I took the family down to Green, Texas. You ever been down to Green?
I haven't. Where's Green, Texas is located?
Just a little bit outside of San Antonio. I got a little quick story I want to share with you about this. Back in 1975. There was a gentleman, we used to call him Chicken Man, those of us that knew him. His name was Pat Malik. Chicken Man, yeah. Okay. And it wasn't because he liked fried chicken. He just had those legs. You know what chicken legs look like? They're real skinny. So they called him Chicken Man, but he went to SMU here, and he was a partier. He used to like to play around and stuff, but Green was a ghost town pretty much. It had been abandoned, and he bought Green Hall back in 1975 and took it over, and he took the old cotton mill there and and turned it into a restaurant called the Grist Mill. And this was years ago. And, man, we've been going there for years and years and years, seen some great acts there. In fact, we saw Ray Benson in the Sleep at the Wheel last weekend, and then Saturday night was Joe Ely. And they've had everybody from George Strait to Merle Haggard to Willie Nelson. I mean, you name it. They've had all the great country stars there. For years they've been playing there. Sure. But it's just amazing how much development there is. You know, I'd heard that corridor between San Antonio and Austin with San Marcos was really growing. But, man, everything is just swallowing green up, man. It's not the little town that it used to be, but it's still a great place to visit.
Well, it sounds like Chicken Man is getting the best out of Green, Texas.
Chicken Man's doing all right down there.
Sir.
Let me tell you what, he's playing Monopoly with real money down there for sure. And speaking of Mother's Day, Johanna McDaniel right here with us today. Super stoked to have you on the show, Johanna. Welcome.
Hey.
How was your Mother's Day?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah?
I had a kid-free Mother's Day weekend. It was awesome.
You had a kid-free Mother's Day.
I did.
Wow. So that must mean you have two beautiful daughters.
I do.
Right?
Yeah. Charlotte and Hannah.
Charlotte and Hannah have an awesome husband. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
Wow. And so Mother's Day for you without kids, that's kind of unusual because your daughters are what age right now?
They are 6 and 4.
6 and 4. I know there's some other moms out there in the audience who have young children just like you. Mm-hmm. And I would bet that some of them have even given real estate a consideration. You know, it's interesting. When I first met you, you'd been in the business about 6 months, I guess.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Right?
Yeah.
So give us, let's just go ahead and dig into things. Let's get some meat on the bone here and unpack a little bit about how you got into the real estate business and what really drove that decision. What was, when you decided to look at real estate as a career, tell me about that moment. What were you thinking? What problems were you trying to solve that real estate could solve for you?
We had recently been laid off from one of our primary income sources. My husband had been, and we were just trying to, throw anything up against the wall to see if it would stick. And one of my friends had recently gotten her license, and I just thought, man, well, maybe I could do that. I'm always on Zillow and Realtor and all the big baddies websites, and I was like, man, maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can have that opportunity. I don't know what it's going to take, and I don't know what it looks like, but I think I'm going to have fun with it. And so we put together everything that we had to get my license and move forward with it, and then just jumped into the deep end as quickly as I could.
So were you prepared at that time? Real estate, a lot of people, I think, don't fully understand. It's 100% commission for most people.
It is. Yeah.
You have to go kill your paycheck every week, we say.
Yeah, you're hunting for your meals.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is you basically burned the boats and said there is no plan B. I'm going to go in here and I've got to make this successful, right?
Yeah, it has to work. And if it doesn't, then I don't know.
Then there's no end game, right?
Yeah.
There is no option B.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So tell us a little bit about that first 6 months. How was that for you?
Well, it was a bit slower. I hit it in at a depressing market after this big boom that we've had the last few years, and I also came in the winter, which is a really rough time to get started with a real estate license. The winter is the slowest market of the year, so I really struggled getting started. I really struggled with it, and so it seemed to go a lot slower for me than it was happening for a lot of other people.
Okay, when you say struggle, was it because you didn't have enough leads? Was it because you weren't really getting the right training? Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because it's hard.
I think it was not having enough good, solid leads that I was able to follow up within the first 3 months.
Okay.
There is a lead time in getting into the business and getting things started, but that first 3 months was so slow for me, and I just didn't know where to apply my efforts to make things really worth my 3 months in.
Okay, so 3 months in, you did a few rental transactions.
I did, yeah.
And then you and I have a mutual friend in the mortgage business,
yeah.
And she told you a little bit about what we're doing here in North Dallas. Mm-hmm. And she suggested that you give me a call, and you and I visited on the phone, mm-hmm. And we talked about some things that we could help with, some areas that we could help you with.
Yeah.
And you decided that you wanted to give it a whirl here.
Yeah.
And so you came on board with us at the Cliff Freeman Group, and we office up in Prosper, Texas. We cover most of the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex here. It was interesting. As I recall, you'd been with us about a grand total of 48 hours.
Yeah.
And you got hooked up with your first client. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So the lead generation that you offer allowed for me to just right off the bat have a active buyer who was ready to go. And so we are already under contract on a home. And that happened this week, which is super exciting for them and for me too, to get that ball rolling. I had generated my own lead just from people that I knew for a seller, but that has since, because of what I've transitioned into, has since, as we say, it made babies. It is.
We like to say listings have babies, right?
And so that's kind of turned into a few more, but the confidence that you've been able to help me have, and the lead generate, it relieves a lot of stress off of me to be able to just relax a little bit and be able to work towards income rather than just hoping that it'll fall in my lap.
Okay. You just said something that I want to speak to the audience here for a minute, because I know this is going to speak to you. But I've long said that there are 3 keys to being successful in the real estate business. Number 1 is, and this is worth about 15% of your total success. Number 1 is your product knowledge.
Yep.
How well you know the market.
Right.
You got to know your stuff, right?
Right.
You got to know what neighborhoods are the good ones, which are the bad ones. You got to know how to position, sell a home, and so forth. You got to know your stuff. So the second thing, which contributes about another 25% to this success, involves your sales skills.
Right.
And sales skills are things that involve, and we use scripts a lot in real estate. The reason why is because it helps us really focus on what we need to influence the consumer to do the right thing.
Right.
And so knowing the sales skills and the product knowledge gets you about 40% of the way there. But you used a word that I think a lot of people underestimate the power of a minute ago.
Confidence.
Confidence. So if there's 3, that means that your confidence is responsible for about 60% of your success in this business.
Right.
So I really appreciate you saying that. I didn't ask you to say that, but it's the truth. It really is the truth. So getting your confidence level up where it needs to be is absolutely critical. And you feel like we've been able to help you with that. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, then let's do this. Let's talk about, I know we've got some agents that are listening right now that may be struggling a little bit. They're looking at you thinking that, gosh, I'm in the same seat. I've been in the business a relatively short period of time. I'm just not getting the traction that I need. Let's see if we can help them out a little bit give them some nuggets. Maybe let's take 3 things that you've implemented in your business just recently, because you didn't have that opportunity before. What are 3 things that you would want to talk about?
Well, the big one for me right now is saving money by just not having to drive back and forth from an office. I can work mostly from home.
Okay.
The second thing is the lead gen that we offer through our group.
Okay.
That's been life-changing.
Okay.
And third, I'll have to think about it in a second. We can come back to it.
All right. Well, let's start with the first one, because our brokerage is virtual. Our offices now, we have physical space in Prosper. We use that for masterminds, and we use it for training, and so forth. But we don't actually have a market center that occupies a big building with a big overhead.
Right.
Our campus is online. You can go in and get all your questions answered by all the departments that are spread out all over the country just by going into the world.
That's the third thing.
Yeah.
It's tech advanced.
Tech. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, but for you, the commute,
huge,
because there's really no need to go into an office. You realize that really about 90% of agents work out of their house anyway.
Right.
And if they have a team, they might have their own space. But the vast majority, I remember going into a market center in the past when I was affiliated with another brokerage, and it was really great. You'd see the same 5 or 10 people in there who were there all the time, at the coffee maker, the water cooler, doing the water cooler chat, who didn't really do a lot of business, right? Because all the people who were making money, they didn't need to be in the office. They needed to be out in the field, and they needed to really, because they were managing their time. And it's like you said, time management is a huge thing in real estate. estate, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we had a discussion over lunch today about time management and your plans. We're going to get to your goals here in just a minute.
Yep.
And I'm super excited to tell people about your goals because this is, this is really life-changing for you and your family to go from a few rental transactions now to the prospect of looking at maybe several $100,000 in production in the next year or two. So I am super stoked for you for that. Okay, so the second thing you mentioned was lead generation, right? So you were talking about leads and so forth. Why is it important for you to have a good source of leads in real estate?
Well, for me in particular, I have moved around a lot. Since we had kids, we moved to Seattle and back, and we don't have the big core base of family and friends to generate referral business right off the bat for us. We do have that, but it's not as big as most people have who have grown up in their communities.
Fair enough.
And lead gen for me, I mean, I feel like now I could meet any stranger off of the street and sell them a house. I'm real excited about that.
That's confidence.
It's really great. But 6 months ago, I couldn't do that. It was just, it was terrifying. And so that's a big one. But the fact that you provide lead gen and that we have that opportunity to go in and just pick and choose whenever I have the time to work on it, I think that's really good.
Right.
That gives me the opportunity to.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, we have several thousand buyers in our buyer database right now who are looking to buy houses all over the Metroplex, and and that's true. We drive a lot of business from the internet. That's where 98% of people start, and I totally get that. You know, people who are not born into real estate, that don't have a big sphere that they've been handed or passed down. You know, you've got to find ways to generate leads outside of a database.
Right.
You know, the databases are really important, and you can hope that you're going to meet enough people standing in line at the post office that need to buy a house that, you know, you'll be able to build a business out of that. But hope is not a strategy. So we have to have additional ways, and what we try to do is to provide, I describe it as like having an oil well. Did I say that correctly? Oil well? In your I'm old. No, oil well pumping leads consistently into your pipeline.
Right.
And that's what it is. And speaking of pipeline, I know you have just lit it up recently with other things. In fact, we were talking about open houses. Tell us a little bit about how you're using open houses to generate leads now.
Well, with the open houses and the newfound confidence that I've gained and being able to use the tech and different values that our brokerage offers, EXP, I'm able to gain more clients. It's one of these things where you show it to them and they're like, oh, well, yeah, I want to use you because you've got the goods, you know? So it's really great. I've gotten another seller and buyer in the last 2 weeks from that. And it's just snowballing. It's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
So we let's do some math here and do a little forward looking.
Okay.
So based on now you've got an experience with the leads, you've started to master the lead conversion process here.
Yeah.
And you know that you've got more leads than you can handle. So that's one thing you're never going to have to worry about is running out of leads.
Right.
So if you really get dialed in and start hitting on all cylinders, and I know we talked about your daughters going back to school and how that's going to free up some time and so forth. But you're a mom. You got 2 girls. You got a husband. You got a family.
Yep.
And even though you're going to be mom and wife and all the things that you need to be to have a balanced life, you still have some pretty ambitious goals about the number of houses and commission dollars you're going to generate in the next year.
Yeah.
You want to share that with the audience?
So my goal for the first year with EXP, so it'll be about 1.5 years into the business, I will have had at a minimum of, I want to do 20 transactions or 20 buy sides, 20 sell sides, or either or. And I feel like that's my minimum. And anything over that would be amazing. But that will be my 6 figures my first year.
Okay. And the price point out in our area, well north of 300. Sometimes when you get into some of the outlying areas, it goes below that. But you're talking about roughly potentially $10,000 in gross commission income per side. So just doing the math, that would put you at about 200 GCI.
I would say the average is about a little 250 to 280 in on the west side of the Metroplex where I'm real heavy in.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm able to do more on the east side, then yeah, definitely in the 300s. Yeah.
Well, for sure. Where we are in Prosper, you know, the average
Yeah.
sales price is pushing, 500, right? And
Absolutely.
when you get into Frisco and those areas, it's even higher.
Yeah,
So,
I'm moving next week.
yeah, excellent. So I want to rewind a little bit and kind of get into your head, because this whole process of figuring out how to get into the real estate business, there's a lot of things that go through your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do I need? What kind? And really, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
When you were looking for your broker initially, how did you get started with? And why did you pick the broker that you started with?
I was very scared about going back to work as a homeschooling mom, and we were formerly in ministry, and I just was very timid. I didn't know what I was getting into. I wanted somewhere that was very safe, and I met with my former brokerage, and I've just felt really at ease and at home there. And that was I love them for that, for making my transition back into the workforce as a working mom so easy and as stress-free as possible. They were very welcoming about me bringing my kids to work, and I had a little spot set up under my desk with Legos and iPads, chargers, and all the necessities for a working mom. But now that I've moved over here, I don't have to go to an office, so it's all at home now. It's a lot easier that way.
Right.
But you said, what was I thinking? What I did is I called the agent who was my parents' agent when they bought their home. And that's who I had last dealt with, and I really liked his business practices and his branding aesthetic and everything. And so I called him up and then jumped into the deep end and just did it.
So it wasn't like you had some method or some strategy.
No, I mean, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. So I didn't know that. I mean, I guess if I had Googled it, like most people do, I would have seen that shopping for brokerages is probably a pretty normal practice.
Right.
But I just went in.
So knowing what you know now, how important is it for an agent out there who's not sure what they're going to do? How important is it how important is your partner, your mentor, your coach?
Oh, it's huge. I think having a coach that's extremely experienced can be a huge boon to your business.
Okay. What about leads?
Yeah, and that the lead gen is good. Absolutely.
Right. You
for
mentioned
me, yeah.
that the quality and the volume of leads is really important.
And it's the quality, not necessarily the volume.
Right.
Most leads from the internet tend to be people with very low credit, or it can be people that aren't ready to buy for another 3 years, or they're just looking, and that's fine because you do have to blow through a bunch of that anyways, and that gives you experience in the business and talking to people. But whenever most of those leads are only that can be really disheartening.
Right.
A lot of times, yeah.
Right. So if you had one piece of advice, just one piece of advice that you could give someone out there contemplating doing what you're doing, what would you offer them?
I would say definitely sit down with yourself or your spouse and figure out what are your goals. You have to goal plan. You have to know what your priorities are. And so then going from there, if you have kids, you want to know, am I able to work from home? Am I required to be in the office? If I want to get leads, do I have to be in the office to get the leads? Or can I just be at work from home and get these leads? You have to be able to ask those types of questions because you're interviewing them and it's not a job interview.
That's right. Yeah.
You're giving them your business.
Right.
So
You're going to be paying the broker, so
Yeah.
you want to see what kind of value
Right.
they're going to deliver for you. That's
Right.
excellent. Well, Johanna, I am super excited about you and your future. You are just absolutely crushing it. And these are the kinds of stories that warm my heart. And it's my reward for being in the business this long, just to be a small part of your success going forward.
Yep.
And I'm so thankful to be in business with you and so excited to have you as a guest on the show. We're going to take a break here, but when we come back, Johanna, we're going to talk a little bit about time management.
Okay.
And, when I first met you, I said there are two things that new agents need to master when they start in real estate. Number one was time management, and the second thing was implementation. So when we come back from the break, we're going to dive into an exercise that is going to help everybody watching today increase their productivity exponentially just by managing a few variables in their life. So stay tuned, and don't forget, head over to www.getcliffsnotes.com to get the document we're going to be talking about here in just a minute. All right, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the show. Again, our very special guest today on episode 2, season 1 of Cliff Notes, Johanna McDaniel, and I hope you were around to hear her story. Absolutely fascinating, and this is an inspirational story that I hope each of you will take and do some good with it. All right, as I promised, I'm going to share a little coaching nugget here. Ooh. That yes, this is powerful stuff, because we're going to essentially help everyone start to act their wage. You may have heard that phrase before. I think Gary Keller started it. But acting your wage really involves, how are you spending your day? What are you doing? What tasks are you doing? And how much is that contributing to your income? So, for example, Johanna, you and I were talking a little earlier about what's the most valuable thing that someone who's a real estate agent can do? What makes you more money than anything else that you can do?
Listing presentations.
A listing presentation. That's right. Travis,
or winning,
is that
winning
right?
a listing
That's right,
presentation.
Isn't it? Yep.
I believe so. If I had to say so, I believe so.
I can promise you, being on a listing presentation can pay you thousands of dollars an hour. There's no question about it.
Right.
Now, there are other things that we do. In fact, for those of you who have already downloaded the document, if you haven't, I want you to get a copy of this. This is what we call a delegation exercise. And on this delegation exercise, we are going to list all of the tasks and things that you do during the day. Now, here's an offer I want to make everybody in the audience. Look, if you'll take the time to complete this delegation exercise, I'll actually spend time with you and go over it. So if you download this, complete it, and email it back to me at cliff@cliffordfreeman.com. Okay, did you get that email address? Let me give that to him one more time. Travis, it's Cliff, C-L-I-F-F, at cliffordfreeman.com.
Okay.
If you'll send me this completed, and Travis, you can do one of these too. It might help you out.
Definitely will.
For sure. The delegation exercise, I will get on the phone with you and we'll do a call and go over this and see if I can help you increase your productivity. It's a very powerful exercise. So we list everything that we do, and I'm just going to go over this briefly because I'm going to give you a chance to complete it in the audience. We go all the tasks that we do during the day. Now, there's a lot of stuff. What kind of stuff do you do during the day, Johanna, that you would put on there?
Laundry.
Okay, laundry. Now, let's talk about that. How much all right, do some quick math here. If you're a $200,000 a year earner, let me do now. If you don't like math, just bear with me on this. There are about 2,000 working hours in a year if you work 50 weeks, because we've got 8 hours a day times how many days? 5 days, right?
Okay.
Times 50 weeks. That's 40 hours a week times 50 weeks is 2,000 hours.
Okay.
If you're earning $200,000, that's $200 an hour. Now, how many people do you know that earn $200 an hour doing laundry?
That'd not be the life.
Not very many.
That's some expensive laundry.
Let me tell you, that's
couture laundry.
Right. So $200 an hour. How about mowing your yard?
Right. Yeah.
How about that one?
Well, I don't do that, but
okay.
We could put that on the list.
Could you hire? Let me ask you. Could you hire somebody for less than $200 an hour to cut your grass?
Absolutely.
A lot less, right?
Yeah, way less.
Okay. So the purpose of this exercise is to help us understand what we need to be doing and what we need to delegate to somebody else. Do you change your own oil in your car?
No.
Why not?
Because I can pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah. First of all, it's a little dangerous, right?
Right.
Unless you have the right lift and everything.
Yeah.
But secondly, you can get it done for $35 and that's it.
Yep. Did it yesterday. Yep.
So we talked earlier about the value. First of all, the value of going on a listing presentation is priceless in our book.
Right.
But what kind of activity leads up to those listing presentations? Prospecting.
Yep.
And we know that as a rule, we want to try to prospect 12 to 14 hours a week, right? Mm-hmm. Because that is going to generate more income for us than anything.
Right.
So again, the purpose, we want to avoid priority confusion, and that's what this helps with. But also, as you think about it and you look at your perfect day, I want you to think on a dollar sense. If I'm doing a certain activity during the day, like if I'm just checking emails and returning phone calls, is that a dollar productive activity?
No. If it's admin related to real estate, it is, but...
Right, because we get hundreds of emails a day.
Easy, yeah.
Very few of them are anything that'll lead to making money.
Right.
Most of them are pushing paper around or spam or something like that. So would you agree that checking email is not a very high dollar producing activity?
Right, it needs to be way down on the list.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. So we will go through this delegation exercise, and I promise that by the time you're through this, if you will religiously respect what comes from this exercise, you will increase your productivity exponentially.
Yep.
And that is key. Remember, in real estate, there is no time clock. There's nobody managing you. It's up to you. You've got to manage yourself. And if you can become a ninja time manager, you will absolutely crush it in the real estate business. Wouldn't you agree, Johanna?
Absolutely.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding, right?
It is.
Yep, absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to wrap our show today. I'm so excited to have everybody tuned in. Thank you so much. And my very special guest, Johanna McDaniel, agent, just crushing it. And Johanna, if there's anybody that wanted to reach out to you and just chat with you, have a conversation about, maybe where they are and talk to you a little bit more about what you're doing and so forth, how can they, what's a good email address for them to reach you?
Johanna.McDaniel@exprealty.com, or you can reach me on most social media channels at Realtor McDaniel.
Okay, and would you just spell your email address, Johanna?
It's JOHANNA.MCDANIEL at EXPRealty.
At exprealty.com. And it's at Realtor McDaniel?
At Realtor McDaniel.
And that's your handle. That's awesome. Well, thank you again so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Super excited to talk to you. And just a final reminder, my offer today to everyone watching the show, if you go to www.getcliffsnotes, download the delegation exercise, complete it, and email it back to me at cliff@cliffordfreeman.com, I promise I will find a way to work you into my calendar to talk about this with you, and see if we can score some big points in your calendar and get you doing those dollar producing activities. All right, so thanks everybody. It's a wrap. We'll see you guys next week.